Stop, take a break, let us know, that's fine. Do you have any questions or anything before we start?
Not offhand.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll sort of introduce it and then I'll start asking questions. Oh, and also I won't be responding, so my job is just to listen, hear your experience, and I'll just ask
Listen to
questions.
me yammer on.
But I won't be saying, yeah, because that can get annoying when you're listening to the interview later. So
Okay.
I'm really interested, but I just won't respond. So, yeah.
Sounds fair.
Yeah, he's all set?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
All right.
Today is Sunday, October 23rd, 2016. My name is Sarah Schneider, and I'm conducting an oral history interview with Scott Peterson of the Orlando Gay Chorus. The interview is being conducted at the Orlando Public Library in Orlando, Florida. Thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure.
And can you start off by stating your name for us?
Scott Peterson.
Thank you.
That's right.
And so could you tell me where you're born and how long you've been in Orlando?
I was born in Des Moines, Iowa, and finished all my schooling in Iowa. Graduated college from the University of Northern Iowa, and then immediately moved to Orlando because my sister was living here. And I didn't have any other plans. So.
How long have you been part of the Orlando Gay Chorus?
Well, let's see. Oh, and then I moved here in '85 to Orlando, and I joined the chorus in Christmas of '99. It was the first performance that I sang with.
And what brought you to the chorus?
I had had my first relationship, and it had ended a couple years prior to that, and was finally starting to want to be more social again, and I knew somebody that sang in the chorus, and I'd been to a couple of performances, but not really very many over the years. I hadn't really been aware of it. I knew that it existed, but that's it. So I went ahead and joined with my friend, and then just completely was taken in by the whole community and the sense of being able to sing, which I've always enjoyed since I was a kid, although I don't have any formal training in singing. I did take one course one summer during college, but I don't know, it was fun, and there were people that were fun and welcoming and people to socialize with. So kind of initially, probably my first motivation was just to be social and to be around a lot of other folks that were gay, which was kind of a treat at that point, other than just going to the gay bars. So it was beautiful, and it was a good cause, and it was all about music, which, as I said, I've always enjoyed that. And thankfully, they were pretty welcoming. I don't know I cannot officially read music, but I can follow very well, and you can kind of intuitively build, a sense of following the notes and such. So I'm blessed enough to have some natural ability to do that and to memorize music, and it started there.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And what have been some of your favorite productions or events you've done over the years with them?
Favorite things. Well, the gala festivals that they go to every 4 years are very memorable. I didn't go to one that happened the very first, or that following year after I joined. I was just a little green and not prepared to take a week off and invest the money that it takes to go on a trip to wherever the festivals are. But I've been to 4 of them now. The first one I went to was in Montreal, which was fun because that was the first time I'd actually been out of the country. So it was just overwhelming and very empowering to be at a place where there are all these other people that are committed to making music and to the whole putting ourselves out there to kind of help bring about change, ultimately. Very slowly sometimes, but ultimately if you just keep at it, things do change. So that's what I felt. So to be surrounded in that festival of all these people singing for each other and on, and I mean, it's a little bit of competition in a way, just because people are naturally that way, but it's not a competition, it's just a festival of celebration. And celebrating all the choruses and all their efforts, no matter how big they are or small. So it was very emotional, and it was very empowering, and kind to all those experiences, and being with the chorus. I was thinking about that before I came today. It's like, what has it done for me on a personal level? I was reflecting on that, is that growing up when I grew up, because I'm 57 now, I was born in '59, So my high school years were the 70s. I graduated high school in 77. And at that point in time, being gay and in the Midwest, it was, Des Moines is a pretty good city, pretty multicultural in some respects, but still it was pretty conservative, and it was in the 70s, and I didn't know any of the gay people. And you feel pretty isolated. And at first you don't even know how to identify yourself that way. That was kind of, didn't have anything, there was nothing on television really to help you compare or contrast or to identify with. It was just knowing that you had a little different sense of people and what you were attracted to as far as people, and not knowing what to do with that, and of course all the natural guilt that we're always subjected to with society. And so that would have colored my whole experience about myself and who I was and about my sexuality. And then college kind of helped me explore a little bit to at least realize what I was about that way. And then, you muddle through, you get through college and you find employment and start your career. And then, but joining the chorus was the first time that I routinely was exposed to a large number of gay people, where you start to have some senses like, well, this is just, there's diversity like crazy, just as there is in the straight population or the population of what you don't even know what people are. And then to be in a gay population on a routine basis like that kind of helped me increasingly feel okay, I guess, about my sexuality. Even though I felt pretty blessed. My parents they weren't shocked. My parents had actually had parties and had invited at least a couple of gay couples to them over the years. But that was it. That was my only exposure. At least I had that much, thankfully. I was actually pretty grateful to them that they were open-minded enough to at least have that come into my awareness as a kid. So I had some idea where I might possibly go with my relationships. But the chorus has been, as I said, such a empowering experience, growthful.
And so you mentioned that you went to the Gala chorus in Montreal and
then we had one in Miami 4 years later, and then now we've had two in Denver, which was really fun. I think the next one is in Minneapolis for another 4 years. So they're all very different, and to be immersed not only in your local community, but then to see such a massive community. When you go to a gala festival, it's like the hotels are full and there are people out and about, and everybody's being very prideful and displaying whatever their lives are about, with some sense of freedom to just express yourself and whatever it is. It's a very beautiful thing.
And so, how did you hear about the Pulse shooting when you were
It was Sunday. I don't remember what I was doing anymore. I picked it up on the radio, I guess. I listened to a lot of public radio. It was kind of my go-to. And then the information started coming in. It was it's one of those things you just don't, I guess, which you routinely hear with people that go through some kind of a horrific event. You don't really realize what's going on right away, or how it's impacting you right away. And a certain amount of it just kind of goes into shock. And then we were also, first thing is you're so concerned about, was there anybody that I was close to that could have been there? It's not a club that I frequented, had been a couple of times years ago. But I know a diverse group of people, and some are younger, would tend to possibly have been there, and you go through that time of trying to identify. And Facebook had this check-in feature that they put out, which was really nice, because you could immediately go and find the people that done. But there was one particular person that I had in mind that was like really concerned, and he wasn't checking in. It's like, so I had some of that sense of not knowing for a while. But that all worked out okay. But certainly had friends of friends who either died or dramatically injured. A lot of people were affected.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was interesting how the chorus was in that position. We were asked to come help right away as far as memorials, or there was one, it was Monday night, I think, at Joy MCC. I can't remember the timing anymore, but one very quickly, the MCC church had a big memorial gathering people, and they asked the chorus to come, and we were there. And then they just started coming more and more frequently, a couple, 2 or 3 times a week. Sometimes it became suddenly these outreach experiences, what we call them as outreaches when we perform outside of our regular big events. We're happening routinely, and it was kind of a journey, kind of cathartic in a way, because it was forcing us to re-experience our emotional reaction to what was happening kind of over and over again. So it probably helped speed up the process of recovering, maybe. I don't know. It was pretty overwhelming those first few days. I kind of, in a way, thankfully was due to leave town for a week to go spend time with my family. So I went to a few outreaches, and then I was pulled away to do that. And I kind of was glad, because I felt like I needed it was so intense, the experience here. It felt good to be pulled away and to go and kind of recover privately for a while, and then to came back and been involved in a lot of the outreaches as much as I can again since then. So how Paul's kind of changed the whole trajectory of the chorus's activity level.
Mm-hmm. And so, can you say more about what the experience was like at the vigils?
The
What it
vigils,
felt like?
just very sorrowful. Especially the first time, there's just a lot of tears, and realizing how you're impacted, and not even understanding when I haven't personally lost someone that was integral to my life, and yet as a community it felt so close to home. It felt very personal emotionally. So I kind of lost track of mine. What was your question again?
What was it like being at the vigil? What was the atmosphere like?
So that cathartic, to realize that you're that hurt. You're going through these expressions of caring and recognizing what's happened to people and what's happened to our community, and the lives of those people that were impacted very personally, being put into your awareness over and over again with the ringing of the bells, for instance. The most, other than that first night when we sang at Joy MCC Church, which was poignant, and the place was just full of people. It was very intense, and there were many pastors of many different faiths who were up at the front, and everybody trying to find their way to identify what's happened, and to comfort, and to recognize the people that have lost their lives initially. That emotional experience kept ebbing and flowing as far as how intense it would feel. But the most memorable thing was the sea of people that showed up for the memorial vigil that was at the Dr. Phillips Center, in that large yard out in front that backs up to the City Hall. And we showed up kind of early, like we always do, to try and get organized, and we're usually preoccupied with where are we going to be, how many of us are going to be here, what music are we going to sing, who's going to direct. So it's logistics issues, and then we're doing a lot of waiting, and then finally we go up on stage, and we've got everything prepared, we know what we're going to do, and you look out, and the sun is starting to go down, and so the atmosphere ultimately became candles and just a sea of people, and the ringing of the bells of the church next door. Yeah, very memorable event here. In life, I can't imagine things much more poignant. So, that was, that's what I remember.
And You said that the vigils have continued over time.
Lots of small events. There have been first responders had a breakfast. I know that some of us went and sang, I think they sang a song or the national anthem maybe to start their event. So a lot of different groups that would never have thought to reach out to the chorus to help make their event, to help add to the ceremony, have been doing that routinely now. So first responders, the different pride events around Central Florida. We just did Volusia this weekend, and we did one over in Melbourne, perhaps 3 weeks ago. We have others that are coming up, and I just like 2 or 3 a week. It's slowed down a little bit now, but there still we're frequently thought of and asked if we can come and support and sing a couple songs, or Volusia, we just did a 30-40 minute set for them to help celebrate Pride. So it's been frequent.
Mm-hmm.
We used to do, I would say the chorus would do probably 10 or a dozen outreaches, maybe over the span of a year before that. Normally we have 2 major performances, one for the holiday and one in the spring, which are full-on, performances at the Plaza Theater. And then we also offer 3, what do they call them, cabarets through the year. One which just happened this Friday, Friday. Well, anyway, just happened. It was Friday. And Uncut's a little racy, so that happens at the Parliament House, which is an appropriate setting to have racy kind of a racy show. And then the other one is called Love Is, which is sweet and happens around Valentine's Day, which is the anniversary of the chorus, Valentine's Day. And then the other one, I can tell you off the top of my head right at the moment with the other ensemble, or the outreach. Whatever it is that they're called. But we've been doing that for a long time. So have 5 performances that are kind of built into our schedule here, aside from that.
And what were some of the songs or the content of what you sang? And was that typical or different for
the vigils?
Yeah.
Thankfully, we had just finished a performance this spring that had a few songs that kind of lent to the subject matter of what would feel appropriate to sing. True Colors is one that kind of became a signature, so to speak, to the event. We sang that at the MCC church that first night, and have done it many, many times since then. It just works. There were quite a few songs. I'm not really the best at telling you as far as pulling titles off the top of my head, but You'll Never Walk Alone has been used a lot. True Colors. I don't know, I can almost see the titles. And we were preparing to go to Denver for the latest gala festival right at that same time that Pulse happened. We'd already put together a different song format, and we're preparing to learn songs to go to gala this last June or July. July. And then changed and actually used music that had been from our just previous concert that we already pretty much knew, and pretty much sculpted the theme of the music that we presented to be appropriate to the tragedy at Pulse when we went to gala. So that was a very interesting experience. Going to gala right after that, being with the larger gay community from across the country, was extremely moving. The other choruses were very acknowledging of what our chorus had done, how we had responded to the community's need, and also what it probably, I assume they were sensing would have affected us personally, being so close to the tragedy. It was a very when you're kind of hurt and you want to be with family, or when you kind of retreat. It felt something like that, but on this global scale with so many people. It was so uplifting and heartwarming to realize that you could kind of let yourself down and repeatedly break into tears occasionally, just because you're remembering or you're realizing how much you've been holding in tension from what had happened, and trying to be there and be strong for the community, and yet you have your own needs, your own personal adjustment that you're still going through. So they were beautiful, all the choruses, and especially during our performance, and we were sculpting it to recognize what had happened at Pulse, and we had some visuals that went with the music, and it became that whole theater was just full of people emotionally responding and singing with us at one particular song. I wish I could tell you which it was off the top of my head, but the whole place is trying to sing and crying through it at the same time, which the chorus was even suffering a little bit on trying to keep ourselves together. It was such a memorable, everyone holding hands through this massive, it's a big, huge theater that we were in. It was just really emotional, and helpful, and beautiful at the same time. It was hard. So, it's kind of what that's been like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was wondering what your thoughts have been about the reaction, either of the other gay courses or of the local community, sort
Local
of everything.
community?
I'm curious what, yeah.
I'm really surprised,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, and proud of Orlando and how it seemed to step up to and recognize and embrace. I mean, this tragedy certainly affected everybody in the local vicinity, more personally because it was so close to home, but to have the sense that they were embracing the gay community and the Latin gay community and just trying to comfort is how it felt. It felt like they were really ready to step up and try and protect and comfort, especially those subsets of our community that may have felt it more personally. And I still see some of that, and it's changed my concept of Orlando. As far as a culture, I always felt that it's a nice place. I've enjoyed living here, but it always seems for newcomers, I always hear that it's kind of hard to make friends, it's hard to meet people, it's hard to find a community to connect with, and that seems much in contrast with what I saw happen after Pulse, and how the whole city seemed to react and want to mourn together and to recognize together and to support the people that were hurt personally as much as possible too. It's been very beautiful. I really am proud and surprised at how, to the degree which everybody stepped up.
Yeah. Did you experience feedback as part of the gay chorus from, did you hear from people outside of the local community? I know you mentioned being at Gala, but was there anything else that you heard from other communities after the Pulse happened?
Well, of course, my family. My family's across. My sister's in Asheville, and my parents and brother and his family, and stepsister are all back in the Des Moines area still. So you have that sense. It's kind of like when a hurricane happens or some other horrific things, like family calls to check in, friends from far away will call to check in to make sure you're all right. And there was some of that too. You could tell that the whole country, on different, to whatever degree, that they would recognize what was happening here as a very personal crisis for the people that are nearby. And anyway, I saw that quite a bit in the news. I tend to listen to public radio, as I said, so public radio tends to be a little bit more socially, maybe sensitive, maybe minded, and so I did hear stories about things around the country and people having vigils around the country, and it was nice to feel supported that way.
What are your thoughts about, you mentioned you'd been to Pulse, but it maybe wasn't a central place for you, but what did you think of it then, and what, if anything, does it mean to you or represent to you now?
That's, well, initially it became one of those places where you have to make a choice. Are you prepared to drive by? Of course, for the first couple of months, I think it was a couple of months before I decided to travel down Orange Avenue. And I was kind of glad it wasn't as, I was glad I finally did it. It wasn't as awful as I thought. And then, I don't know, it wasn't a real personal club for me. Like I said, I always felt it was more for a younger age group, generally. It's a generalization, but the memorial that's been built there with people responding, and so many people like taking vigils to go and experience some sense of being closer to the people that were hurt and were killed. It's still real present. Just the other night we went to the vigil that it was an art experience. They were trying to do healing with art and created this big banner and put it up on the side of the wall. And this was the first time apparently that they've allowed public inside the fencing that was put up as a perimeter to protect the building and the investigation that was going on initially. So it was interesting. It kind of felt like an opportunity or a time for the community to start taking back a little bit. It's like a place that nobody seemed welcomed inside of anymore. It was like a forbidden kind of sense about it. And now it feels like that's starting to be chipped away at, and I guess apparently I understand that they may reestablish the club there, or I think that's the plan. I don't know what the intention is ultimately, or that there may be a memorial, or I don't know what they're going to do, but I think that was it was an experience again where eventually it will be taken back, and everybody will own access to that, what was apparently a really central place for community to meet, for a lot of the folks that were frequently went there. It was kind of nice. I'm glad that they had that event and started making inroads. Hard to imagine actually walking in there, but everything will change, and everything does eventually heal, no matter what the trauma that you experience in your life. Every time always makes things okay again, or at least livable. So I could see them having a club again.
And did social media play any role in your experience of the aftermath of the shooting? Oh, you mentioned the checking in.
The checking in, and then really moving was seeing the mosaics. People were creating mosaics of the people whose lives were lost immediately, which was beautiful in a way because it made it more personal. When you can see someone's face and it helped me sense that I had an emotional connection to the people that died. And I actually, although I'll never have known them, but it just, something about seeing human faces, and it helped. It helped make it more real and made the emotion seem to make sense. So that was very dramatic. Facebook really made that possible in a much quicker way. And all the expressions of love and all the outreaches that the chorus would do, there's always pictures taken and posting so you can identify that you were there, and kind of helps create um, a record, like a personal record too, because you can save posts and now have something I can ultimately go back and when I want to remember what that journey was like and what it felt like at different points of time after that happened. It's a very beautiful thing that we have that to personally archive events that happen to us so easy.
So what do you hope that the long-term consequences of the Pulse shooting will be for the Orlando gay community and for the larger city as a whole?
Or even the country, I hope. I thought of this fairly early on too. It's like it seems so almost, I don't know, almost feel a little bit of guilt on some level of wanting to see a silver lining when people's lives were taken, when people's lives were so dramatically altered and hurt. But I kind of felt that or sensed that potential existed kind of early on. It's like such an awful thing to see the way the country was reacting, and particularly the way Orlando was reacting, was very heartwarming, very encouraging to further what's been such a long struggle as people have put themselves out there, and many people have died over time as a result of hate and focused assaults on gay people. But I've seen a lot change in my lifetime in that respect, even to the point of gay marriage now being legal, which when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, never would have dreamt of such a thing ever. From that vantage point, seeing what it was like to be gay and that it was such a closeted thing, and that people could get hurt, to think it could come to the point where finally the majority of people recognize and stand up and we're willing to protect rights of gay people too. So it kind of seems like we've come through so much already, and then to have such an awful event, and then to witness, because so much has already been done socially where people are getting to the point where they seem to understand a little bit, that just like anybody else, that gay people need to be protected and cared for just like any other subsets in our country. It seems like there's some beautiful divine plan that ultimately society is growing, society is getting better towards everybody's benefit. That I think the more inclusive we are, the more able to empathize with and care for people that have different experiences than what we have, that ultimately we're all better off. That's a much stronger place to be, which is kind of somewhat hopeful because the other influences across the world don't seem like we're going that way. There's so much hate and the terrorism and all the misunderstanding. People don't understand each other, and people get confused about what other people's motivations are. So much destruction happens, but this is kind of a case of we're seeing something getting better, that maybe for the human race in general, that there's better hope that we can continue to be better at taking care of each other.
Mm-hmm.
So just a nice piece of evidence that there is hope.
Do you have any other reflections about the Pulse shooting or being a member of the gay chorus or anything else that you'd like to talk about?
The Pulse shooting, no. The gay chorus is, it's kind of interesting because I'm becoming one of the older members in the chorus now. So when I joined, 99, I would have been 22 or 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, 23. 22, I was 41. Yeah, 40. I was 40 when I joined the chorus, which was still relatively, and I'm still relatively young, but a lot of time's gone on, and we have younger people now that are part of the chorus. We've always been really good at having a pretty diverse age group. Like, we have some folks that have been in their 80s. I think we had a member that was 80 plus. And we've had some that were actually minors still. And parent would join the chorus as a support person, and then the minor child was singing with the chorus. And I've had that happen more than once. So it's interesting to see the young people and to get to experience, especially young gay people, because of that community that we have, and to see how their lives are so much different than what my life was like going through those times of their lives. So it's kind of, it's nice. It's something that's alive. It's a community that continues to grow. It has generations. It's very much like a big family, in a way. It's still, and some of the relationships are actually in some ways more important that some folks develop than maybe the relationships that they currently have with their family members, because there are still people that suffer from not having support or have relationships that are severely damaged with their biological family. Hopefully a lot less than it used to be, but that does certainly still happen, even with the young folks. So in that respect also, the chorus becomes more than just, it becomes friendships, and it becomes people you rely on, and people that will be there when crises happen, and we kind of take care of each other in perspectives. So it's interesting how the chorus is more than just a singing group, and more than just a social advancement movement, but it's also a huge community of people. It's kind of nice. That's how I feel about the chorus.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything else you wanted to share or talk about?
Not off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate that you were willing to do an interview with
Thanks
us.
for going to the effort. This is a beautiful thing that you're doing. How many interviews do you think you're having?
Maybe about 30. I'm not positive,
oh,
but
nice.
I know a good number at least. Yeah.
That's a good third, approximately.
Yeah.
Of course. That's great.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.